Alright, what's going on, guys? My name is Nicholas Tetra Ninja, and this is going to be more of a tech tutorial guide and tech review guide, a little bit different than what I do normally on the channel. And today we're going to be talking about PC parts, and I'm going to be providing you guys with a PC build. So this is for all those people possibly interested in getting into PC gaming. If you're not interested and you're a console fanboy, then exit the video now and spare us your hate comment down below. I'll say that, but there'll still be some hate comments from those people who think that PC gaming is expensive and it is for nerds. But I will admit that there are pros and cons to each PC versus console gaming. I'm not going to get into it because, once again, we're trying to avoid a flame war. But I got into PC gaming a couple years ago. I think my first real game was Skyrim. It's a fairly recent game in terms of PC gaming, but I've enjoyed the experience the entire way through, and I get a lot of questions asking what I suggest on different parts, and maybe people ask me all the time if I can do a build guide for them at a specific price point. So I thought I might as well just do a video on it, just because I spend the majority of my time these days on YouTube, my leisure time anyways, looking at PC parts and researching different PC components and staying up to date with the news of release date of different things. And I built two PCs as well. I have my main gaming PC, which is right down there. You can't see it. And then I also have my live stream PC, which is right there. Those two are a little bit more extremes than you probably want to spend on a PC. The price point that we're trying to focus on is around $1,300, give or take. And that is generally the consensus of what the sweet spot is for how much you want to spend on a gaming computer. And also, I want to give a quick props to KBMOD. Their website does a monthly build guide at different price tiers, and I grabbed one of the tiers and kind of adjusted it on where I thought money should be allocated differently. It's not the exact build as their 1300 build, but it's substantially, I wouldn't say substantially different, but it's fairly close. So if you guys want to check that out as well, you can check out their website in the description. So yeah, let's get started. First thing we're going to start with is probably one of the more important parts of your computer, which is the CPU, basically the brain of your computer. And the CPU that we chose, or I chose anyways, once again, these are just my opinions. I'm going to be offering you guys different options as well as I list all these parts. If you have a little bit more money or you have a little bit less money, once again, your budgets will be a lot more flexible than this video, the price point that I chose. So first thing we're going to start off with is the CPU, which I chose as the i5-3570K. This is an Ivy Bridge based processor on the 1155 platform. It is a beast at its price point, and it will pretty much do everything you need it to do in terms of PC gaming. It is unlocked, meaning that you can overclock it. If you're buying a processor, I would never suggest buying an unlocked processor. Sorry, a non-unlocked processor. To get the ability to unlock the processor is only about usually 20 to 30 bucks more to get that K at the very end of it, and it's really definitely worth it to go that route. So always get the unlocked processor. The only other option I would possibly suggest is a 3070K if you have a little bit more funds. It's about $100 more, and it's really only geared towards people who are editing. If you're doing a lot of rendering times, like such as myself, both my computers are equipped with 3070Ks because I render videos on them, because this YouTube thing is my career, so it makes sense that I invest in that, and I'm constantly rendering lots of videos to break your guys' sub boxes. So different options for you guys if you want to spend just a tiny bit more, but at $100 less, you can't really go wrong in terms of the performance of the 3570K. And since we're on the topic of CPUs, well, you'll need a CPU cooler if you are planning to overclock at all. And the CPU cooler that we are choosing is basically the most popular one on the market today, and that is the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. The Evo is the newer model. The only difference between the 212 Evo and the 212 Plus is that the heat pipes on the Evo are they're squished together and they're connected together. So in theory, that will give you a tighter mounting surface to your CPU, which increases overall performance, apparently. Well, it makes sense. In terms of how much cooler it will get your CPU versus the Plus, it's pretty much unanimous about 1 to 3 degrees cooler, which is not a lot, but it's only an extra $5. So yeah. And just tossing this out there, although it's not included in this build guide because we're trying to stay at the $1,300 mark. If you are into the aesthetics of your PC and you care what it looks like, especially if you're gonna go with a case that has a window side panel. If you're not going with a window side panel, then probably not. You wouldn't have to worry about this at all. But if you're cooling on air, when you look into your case, what you're gonna see is just a gigantic radiator with fans attached to it. And personally, in my opinion, that's not really appealing, for lack of a better word, in terms of aesthetics. So I generally stick with the water block solutions, the contained water cooling solution. Both my computers one of them has an H100i and the other one has an H100, and I think they look very, very smexy with them in. So just a different option out there if you want to spend a little bit more, if you want your PC to look cooler, in my opinion. Cooler. Pun. But anyways, moving on, we're going to move on to the motherboard. And the motherboard we're going to be using is the ASRock Extreme 4. Once again, because we're using a 1155 socket CPU, we need a motherboard that's compatible with that. And the ASRock Z77 is pretty much the most popular motherboard on the market today. If you go on different sites, benchmarking sites or computer sites, it's mainly this motherboard which has the most reviews and the most feedback on. So great choice. It's a medium range motherboard. You really don't need to get in the high ranges unless you're trying to match components to colors and parts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, great choice on there. In terms of memory, we went with G.Skill Sniper memory, mainly because it is black, and it will match well with the ASRock Z77 motherboard. And G.Skill is a very, very, very good RAM at a very, very good price point in terms of other DIMM manufacturers on the market today. And 8 gigabytes will pretty much do you for any game on the market out there today. And yeah, so moving on to storage. This part is a little bit more controversial because an SSD or a solid state drive will not really improve your gaming performance at all. But if you're like me and you're on a computer a lot, and as we get more into the more information technology age, your computer is becoming more of a central hub for your everyday life. So an SSD, like I said, will not improve your game performance, but it will just make your experience with everything else, programs and such, a lot smoother. Everything just boots up quicker. Everything responds quicker. Once you go SSD, you really do never go back, ever. It just is so amazing. So if your budget is a little bit tighter, maybe at the $1,100 mark, then you can cut the SSD out. But I don't know. It's just, yeah. But if you have to, go for it. But if you don't have to, go with an SSD. And the SSD I chose is the best one on the market that you can get today, hands down. It's pretty much unanimous on every single site out there right now. As we move into the later half of this build guide, we're going to be investing a little bit more into components that the KBMOD people didn't, and I'm going to try to justify this as best I can. So in terms of SSD speed, you really won't notice a difference in real-world applications in terms of response times. The only time you will actually notice any difference is if you're benchmarking SSDs and running them through programs such as Crystal Disk Mark and all that kind of other stuff that I'm not going to get into. But since your SSD is going to be it's going to be containing all your program files, and it's most likely going to be moving with you onto your next build as well. I think that it's reasonable to be spending a little bit more on it. So the SSD I chose was the Samsung 840 Pro and the 128 gigabyte model. 128 gigabytes is pretty much the sweet spot in terms of SSD size versus price. So once again, this is the best SSD on the market today, and it's what I'm using in my main gaming PC. That one is using an OCC Vector, just because I wanted to try something a little bit different. Once again, you're not going to notice anything in terms of speed difference other than, you're not going to notice any speed differences in real world applications. But if you're, in my opinion, if you're going to be bringing in parts that you're going to be bringing into future builds, then you might as well just be investing a little bit more into them. So yeah. Moving on to the video card. The video card I chose was the MSI GeForce GTX 660 Ti Power Edition. Make sure that you get the Power Edition. So basically, without getting into the crazy stuff such as 690s and GTX Titans, so you have your GTX 680 at the top. Then you have your GTX 670, which is about 95% of a GTX 680 at a lot cheaper price. So, and then you have your 660, which is about 95% or 90 to 95% of a GTX 670 at a much more lower price than a 680, dropping down, cascading. So at the sweet price and with the Power Edition, if you overclock it with the 660 Ti, you'll basically be achieving the same speeds as 670. You don't necessarily have to overclock, but it is an option for you to have, especially if you're going with the Power Edition. And in general, it is the sweet spot of what you want to be spending on a video card. The video cards change, are upgraded yearly, and the difference between a 660 Ti and a 680, I would say 90% of a 680 at $200 less. Yeah, it's worth it to save it there. And you always have the option to SLI a little bit further along the road if you want that little bit of extra power. But once again, at $1,300, the 660 Ti is a great choice. Hands down. I think it's pretty much unanimously agreed online. So in terms of the case, once again, the case, I would have to say, is something that you want to be investing a little bit more on. And it is another main difference between my build and the KBMOD build, mainly because your case is something, once again, you're going to be bringing forward into your next build and possibly your build after that. I would say a case should last you about 2 to 3 builds. So you want to be happy with the case that you choose. My very first case that I chose was the Cooler Master Half X, and overall, although it was a great case, I liked it. I always had my heart set on the 800D by Corsair, but it was just a matter of the limited funds at the time, and eventually I just upgraded to an 800D once I got a little bit more money and I sold the Half X to a friend of mine. So I would have to say, choose a case that you really, really like, and don't be afraid to be investing a little bit more into it than your typical case. The 650D is a great case. It's a mid-tower case. It has a windowed side panel on it, so you can look into your PC and see it run really sweet when things are up and running. Another good case as well is if you want a more distinctive look to your computer, you can go with the 600T, which has more round edges to it. Once again, it comes with a side panel. You can get one without a side panel, but I don't know why you would want to. And it comes in different colors as well. It comes in black. So yeah, both cases I've seen in real life, and I can tell you they would be perfect to work with, very easy to work with in terms of cable management. If you want to save a little bit more money and you do not want the side panel window, you can also go with a Fractal Design R4, which is a very, very good value-oriented case for the money. And if you want to spend a little bit more, you can and you don't mind your computer being the size of a truck, then you can possibly go with the Corsair 800D, or maybe even the Corsair 900D, which isn't released yet but is coming out fairly soon. So yeah, those are your options for cases. You don't even need a case technically. You could run your PC on like a box, and yeah, but that's just not really practical. So moving on, we'll move on to the final part, which is the power supply. And the power supply is the one place in your PC build that you do not want to skimp on, because usually problems with the computer starts with the RAM. That is usually the first thing it moves on to, and then it's usually, depending on who you ask, between the motherboard and your power supply. And you want to invest in a good power supply. There are many horror stories online of power supplies shorting out, blowing up everything in your case and all your other components, and just general bad news bears overall. And once again, like your case, your power supply will most likely be moving with you forward on your next 2 to 3 builds. So spend a little bit more up front, and then on components that you're going to be using more long term. So the power supply that I went with is the best one that you can get once again, and that is the Corsair 860i. This is a fantastic power supply. It is 80 plus platinum certified, which is its energy rating, which is the best that you can get right now. One of them is powering that live stream PC, and then we have a 1200i powering my main PC. And so in terms of wattage, the reason we went with 860 watt is that it will basically do you for everything. The only thing that an 860 watt power supply will not do you for is 2 multi-core GPUs running in quad SLI, such as a GTX 690 quad SLI configuration, which kind of crazy. Not many people will do it, but yeah, 860 watts will even get you enough power to run 2 GTX Titans in SLIs. So it's basically everything that you need for the future. In general, probably you won't need more than 750 watts unless you're going to go crazy and run 2 Titans. But the reason why I went with the 860 watt model opposed to the 760 watt model that Corsair also offers is that for the extra 100 watts, it's only $15. And although it's not common, power supplies, the 860 watts means that that's how much it can output on load. You will not be running your computer on load the entire time. And as well, PSUs and power supplies, their performance do degrade over time. It's not a lot. I'm not saying that you're going to drop from 700 to 650 within a year. It's nothing like that extreme, but it's always nice to have good overhead for your power supply. Once again, it is powering your computer, something that is an investment that you're making for the long run. So, my opinion, spend more on this power supply than you would on other parts as well. So that's why I decided to go with the best one that's on the market today. And the cables are really nice. They're nice and black. They don't have any crazy color schemes to them and all that kind of stuff. So in general, yeah, those are the core components that you can be using. Oh, once again, as well, you can also you can use basically any optical drive that you can find on the market. Don't spend more than $20 on an optical drive. Some people question the merits of even having one these days. Some people suggest that you can just load your operating system through a thumbstick. But in my opinion, even though it takes away from the overall aesthetic of your case of having one installed, it's always nice to have just in case you do need to pop in a CD for some odd reason. I know it's not common these days, especially with cloud storage and USB drives, but it's always just nice to have, and it's only $20. So yeah, in terms of other things such as peripherals, such as speakers, monitors, keyboards, and mouse, those are up to personal preference and what you want. You cannot really choose a mouse without actually playing with it first. So if you live near a computer store that allows you to try different types of mouse, it's really just what you're most comfortable with using. Try one out and see what you can get, or go online and read reviews. Those are just extra costs that I'm not going to cover, because once again, those are really personal things. And if you have a computer, then maybe you have those already. But yeah, overall, those are my opinions of what you should be spending on. Overall, as I record this video, the price point of all the components that I chose came to $1,300 and $1,363.39 Canadian. Could be different in America. So yeah, those are the components that I chose. Once again, this PC thing is really all up into opinion and interpretation, and the main thing about building a PC is that your PC truly is your own. You really will never run into a situation where you'll find two people with the same PC. Very, very rare. Main difference between my builds and the KBMOD build is that they went with 3070 and went a little bit higher on the graphics card with a GTX 670. Once again, I adjusted my price and put more money into components that will help you further along the road in future builds. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and found it informative. Once again, I most likely am going to run into hate comments in the comment box and people saying the different opinions. PC people are very opinionated people, and where you should be spending your money. But that's the breaks. That's what you get for having an opinion. Everyone has them. But hopefully you guys found this video useful. And if you did find it useful and you'd like to see me do another one, an updated one further along the road, then let me know. And other than that, thank you guys for watching, and have a fantastic day as always.